Hello everyone and welcome to thorough newspaper analysis presented to you by LawSeco. Let's see what articles we will be discussing from the Indian Express and the Hindu today. So today we have a set of very nicely written and very interesting articles, and also they form a very important part of our syllabus as well. And that is why once again we would recommend and we would advise all the aspirants viewing this news analysis to have along with themselves a copy or any kind of notebook, diary, or whatever they feel okay with, and a pen to jot down the important points that we will be discussing today, because all of these can be potential questions from mains point of view, and the things that we will be discussing in news and flash can really be a very potential question from the prelims exam. Firstly, we will be talking about the article which is titled as "For Equal Treatment." This is from the Hindu, and this talks about the equal treatment of the persons with disabilities, keeping them at par with the SCs and STs, which are the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people. Secondly, the article is "Blessings of the Visa Gods." So very recently we got the news that US has passed an order to suspend the H-1B visas, which are actually given for the technical work and other matters that we had already discussed. We'll also further discuss it in detail. And what has been the impact, and what can be the possible impact of such visa suspension. We will discuss this in a better detail today. Thirdly, State of Deluge, which talks about the recent floods that have occurred in Assam, and approximately 95% of the entire state has been submerged under the water. So the crisis relating to this flood, and how and in what way floods can be stopped, and what are the causes of such rampant and repetitive floods in the state of Assam will be discussed. And finally, we will be talking about the news and flash column. As we already said, that in this we have the to the point news, very crisp news articles, very crisp news points that are a potential, that have the potential to be asked in the prelims exam, as well as some facts that are dealt with in the news and flash column can be anytime quoted in our mains answers or even the essays for that matter. Always remember that such facts, reports, indices, and small informations are very important, and are the just to say, they give us the better marks in the exam, and they actually are important in fetching marks in any kind of mains exam, mains answer writing or essay. With this, here is a short idea about the short introduction about the LawSeco test prep courses. By test prep, we mean the courses that we have specially modified and moduled for the preparation of various tests and competitive exams in India. These may be judiciary, the Judicial Services Exam, CLAT, SEBI, etc. Here in our test prep courses, we offer personal guidance, tailor-made program, special learning techniques to make it more interesting, live online classes, regular tests and mocks, regular competitions, scholarships, interview guidance, and many more such other perks. The official website of LawSeco can be viewed anytime. The link to it has been already provided in the description box. With this, let's discuss that what is the MCQ question for today, and the answer to this you will be able to find within the discussion that will follow. So the question is, Azad Patan hydropower project, recently seen in news, is situated on which river? First, Satluj, second, Chenab, third, Jhelum, or fourth, Ravi. And here is the descriptive question for the day. Keeping in mind the challenges faced by persons with disabilities in our society, the Supreme Court's decision to give them rights at par, which means inequality, with the SCs and STs is a positive step in this direction. Discuss the steps that have been taken for judicial treatment of PWDs, that is persons with disabilities. Also, discuss what other steps may be taken in this regard. Again, reiterating what we had already mentioned yesterday as well, that the answer to this question has to be ideally written within a word limit of 250 to 300 words only. And thus, it can be very easily accommodated in the comment section below, and thus, we would really encourage all the aspirants viewing this news analysis to jot down their answer to this question. LawSeco would definitely make an initiative to probe into and to review these answers. With this, let's start today's discussion. We talk about the SCs and STs rights and the rights of the persons with disabilities. So SC and ST relaxations to the disabled. Let's know that why actually this has been in news recently. The Supreme Court in this case. Now, the name of this case should be remembered as whenever being an aspirant from the judiciary point of view, we quote any kind of name of the case which is authentic. It gives us definitely better hold over our answer and also makes the examiner believe that the aspirant is more aware of the facts and also the legal uh, advancements that are going on in the country. Thus, the Supreme Court in the case of Aryan Raj versus Chandigarh administration and others held that the disabled are entitled to the same benefits and relaxations as candidates belonging to scheduled castes. This definitely is a very good step that has been taken in this regard, because we know that the people who belong to the SC and ST category, the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribes, they have had a very long history of exploitation against them, and ever since we had the caste system in India, since then they have been exploited severely in the social setup. But at the same time, what we have been left, but what we have been unable to understand is that though SCs and STs have, yes, they definitely have had a lot of atrocities against them, but still we should also keep in mind the to say the to see the condition or the plight of the people that suffer with various kinds of physical or mental disabilities, and thus they also have to have some important rights for that matter, so that they can also live their lives properly and in an efficient manner like the other individuals. While considering the problems faced by the disabled in assessing education or employment regardless of their social status, it has been noted here that we might say that the people who are belonging to the SC or ST community or SC or ST class, they have had a long history, yes, as we just discussed, of exploitation against them, and thus they are more at the verge of being exploited in the society, and thus they are exploited even today to a greater extent. But when we try to study the social setup in our country more intricately, what we see is that people who belong to the who have some kinds of physical or mental disabilities, now regardless of the fact that whether they belong to any poor family or a very efficient and prominent family, it has been seen that they are at a greater verge of being vulnerable at the cost of the exploitation that is happening against them as well. And thus it should be realized within time that even these people with that, which we also commonly known as the PWDs, they should also be given to say appropriate focus so that they can grow well. This is the one small excerpt from this order of the Supreme Court, wherein it said that the High Court has correctly held that people suffering from disabilities are also socially backward, because we know that any kind of reservations that in India were made were given basically on the social backwardness, and very recently it was done on the economic ground, which was done by for the 10% economic quota reservation. But in as a general rule, it is the factor of social backwardness that gives any person the right to get some particular kind of reservation. And if we study it deeply, then we would be able to understand that the people who are suffering from any kind of disabilities are also falling very much into the category of being socially backward, and are therefore at the very least entitled. So this the Supreme Court to say upholds the judgment given by the High Court, wherein it said that, and this is the least that we can do for them for now, and at the least they should be entitled to the same benefits as given to the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe candidates. Thus, it is a very positive step that has been taken in the direction to give the equal rights to persons with disabilities. Very recently, there has been a complete campaign which is called as the Sugamya Bharat, which deals with the factor that the infrastructure, by infrastructure we mean that various kinds of buildings or public places like the railways, metro stations, bus stands, etc., they should be built in such a manner so that it becomes easier for persons with disabilities to make to assess these areas. Very common example of this can be taken as that various metro stations in our country, like for example, if we take metro stations of Delhi, we see that there is a proper metallic passage which has proper directions and lines drawn on that passage. These are very easy for the people who are visually challenged, that they actually can sense this direction, and thus they can make out that which way do they want to go. In the similar manner, there are various other facilities available, like wherever you would be able to find the staircases, you would also find a ramp kind of a structure so that people who are using wheelchairs can easily access that area. And that is why the very aim of that Sugamya Bharat campaign or Sugamya Bharat mission is to make all the infrastructure that are at least now being developed in the latest scenario should be made and constructed in such a manner that people with disabilities or persons with disabilities can also have an equal access to these buildings. Thus, that can also be added to the answer to today's question, that these are the other steps, and further an extensive research in this area can be done. And next we will discuss that why this step may receive criticism, because obviously when we are studying or trying to understand any to say a change that has been brought in the society, it is not always welcomed by all the people of the society equally, because if there are supporters of a particular thing, there are also to say criticizers of that particular idea as well. And there is a possibility that even this step that has been taken may be criticized severely by many people. But now let's see that on what grounds such criticism may arise. Firstly, the judgment attempts, it is according to the criticizers that the judgment attempts to equate physical or mental disability with social disability and experience of untouchability suffered by marginalized sections for centuries. The people who are against this order or who might not find it fit or appropriate, they claim that the Supreme Court's order has tried to put two things which are not otherwise equal, but they have tried to put these two things at one in one plate. They say that the mental or physical disability, which actually is the case with the persons with disabilities, cannot really be equated with the social disability that is faced generally by the SCs and STs due to the various kinds of exploitations that they have had to see since centuries, the untouchability issue and various other social atrocities. But here again, the backing, or to say the counter to this, can be given as that ultimately what happens is that the people who are suffering from physical or mental disability with this, they actually tend to have in finality social disability as well, because due to their physical or mental disability, they are not able to avail various opportunities that are available in the society. For example, proper jobs, proper employment, education, or other activities, sports, etc. So various activities that actually are very important for the development of human being and for the human personality, they actually are, they drop out from it due to their physical or mental disability. And thus what in finality or what ultimately they have to follow is social disability. So thus the Supreme Court says that in final to say in a final scenario, if we see both, be it the untouchability faced by the marginalized sections or be it the physical or mental disability faced by the person with disabilities, both of the cases lead ultimately to social disability, and thus they can be brought at par in this situation. Here, the other criticism that can be given is that a privileged social background of the disabled may give them an advantage. Well, if this is to be said, then there are many cases wherein there are a lot of people who avail the benefits of these reservations given to them, and yet they belong to very proficient and privileged families. Then what about that? So this actually is something that it will come along with this. So it might be a case that in some situations, the persons with disabilities belong to privileged social backgrounds and they have good resources as compared to the others. But still, if we keep it as a general rule and try to look it into totality, then we will be able to understand that there is a greater number of people who actually are facing such atrocities against them. And also another backing to this can be given according to the 2001 census, wherein it came out that illiteracy rate among disabled was 51%, and it was even higher than the illiteracy rate that was amongst the SCs and STs. Thus, it can be construed very easily here that the disabled are even at more risk of social exploitation as compared to the SCs and STs, and thus they have very equal potential to be treated equally with the SCs and STs. So thus this entire concept should be understood very intricately, and what impacts would it have positively or negatively on the society should also be analyzed. With this, let's talk about the second topic for the day, which talks about declining cash and brain drain. Recently, the US President Trump rescinded his directive to foreign students pursuing online education in US, and US earns $45 billion annually from international students' fees. Recently, what happened is that two things happened consecutively almost, that in the month of June, uh, an order was passed by the United States to suspend the further issuance of the H-1B visas till the end of this year. Basically, the role of H-1B visas was simply to allow people from other countries, and mostly the people who belong to the technological sector or the IT sector, to come by through these H-1B visas and to work in various technological companies and tech giants like the Google, Apple, etc. in US. So basically, what they enjoyed was that the people who came from the other countries with through the H-1B visas, they availed good remittances, they were given good salary, but as compared to the rates of the people available there in the indigenous people of the United States of America, it was easier for the such tech giants and companies also to hire people from other countries, and it was also economically feasible for them. Thus, it was a very good relationship going on between the tech giants in America and the other people entering USA through H-1B visas. Why it was a concern for India was because amongst all the people who avail the H-1B visas and enter into America, India holds the lion's share, to say for that in that matter, and that most of the people, and approximately more than half of the people availing the H-1B visas from USA were from India, and thus further cancellation of the issuance of H-1B visa definitely will bring down the employment that was earlier enjoyed by Indian IT professionals, which now they would not be able to do at least till the end of this year. Then the second decision that recently came was that the universities, because now we know, as in the cases in India, and it is in the entire world for now, that schools and universities are shut down, and all the classes that are to be carried on are done by online resources. Similar thing was going on in United States of America as well, and so an order had been passed that students who belong to other nationalities and are studying in USA, and if due to the pandemic the entire course or entire semester that they have to see in the coming future, if it will be covered by completely by online resources or online classes, then they will have to leave the United States and go back to their native nations, and would have to study from there, since United States of America is already facing an economic crunch, and thus they would not want to other students to stay over in United States of America and to increase the economic burden. But then again, it was highly criticized, and recently Trump, the president of United States of America, has rescinded, or to say he has brought down or cancelled this particular order. Another thing that should be known here is that United States earns annually approximately $45 billion, which is a very, very huge amount, and it earns this amount annually from international students' fees. So this actually is a very important sector to say for the income of United States of America. Secondly, educational institutions in many countries have become increasingly dependent on tuition fees earned from foreign students, and in case of Indians, are the single largest group. What happens is that there is a trend, and especially if we try to analyze it in our domestic area, which is in our own country, we have this trend of students rushing out to other countries, like for example Australia, or be it London or America also for that matter, that they rush out for gaining their further or higher education. Now, this definitely is not done free of cost. There are obviously a very small number of students who are able to do it on the basis of scholarships. Otherwise, most of the students, they pay a huge lump sum amount of fees to these foreign institutions in the exchange of their degrees. Thus, this has become increasingly a very huge trend in that matter, and many countries are now depending heavily on such tuition fees so earned. And amongst all the students in the foreign countries studying in their universities, Indians hold again a very big share, which means that Indian students are more driven towards the foreign institutions for their higher education, which definitely is a blot on our own education system, because had we been able to provide them world-class education within the country, they would definitely not want to leave the country and study into some foreign institutions paying such heavy amounts of fees. Now, just let's understand that why this entire scenario is a problem for India. Firstly, the Reserve Bank of India says that the annual forex Always remember that wherever this word forex is used, it stands for foreign exchange. And whenever we try to analyze the strength of a country or the economic, strength of a country, then the amount of forex that particular country holds, or the amount of foreign exchange that particular country holds, determines that how strong is it in the economic sector. Higher the amount of forex, higher or better is the economic setup in that country. Thus, the Reserve Bank of India says that the annual foreign exchange outflow has risen from $1.07 billion in 2009 to 14 to $11.33 billion from for 2014 to 20, of which payment for studies abroad and maintenance for close relatives comprise 40%. Thus, it says that the outflow of money from India has been seen severely increasing when we talk about the education, and also when we talk about maintenance of close relatives comprise over 40%, which is actually a very huge share. Secondly, students who join paid education and they eventually get citizenship are a net drain. Basically, what happens is that this is more likely a trend seen in India as compared to other countries like Korea, Japan, or China, wherein in those countries, what happens is that fine, a student might go to some other country to gain education, but in finality, when there is the time to earn something or use that education for any positive thing, those students return back to their native nations and they work for the economic development of that particular country. On the contrary, the case with Indian students is that when they go out to any other country for gaining their higher education, mostly, what they tend to do is that they try to get the citizenship of that very country and they settle there. Definitely now, if they're getting citizenship of their country, so all of their earning, the taxes from their earning will definitely go to that particular country and nothing, no penny will come back to India. Thus, it is considered to be a net drain, which is commonly known as brain drain. Basically, brain drain is that when, due to some reasons, the good brains, the intellectual brains, or the smart people who were supposed to work and earn in the very home country and also add to the growth of that particular country, actually tend to do the same for the other country, and thus a drain or a drainage of such intellect or mind or brains is seen, which is definitely very detrimental if we talk about India. And also keeping in mind that India is the known as the youth country or the young country. It has 65% of its total population falls into the young category, as we just discussed in our yesterday's news analysis, and wherein we also said that if we want to become a superpower, we need to invest on the skill development of this youth. But imagine if this youth will start draining out to other countries and would add to the skills and benefit of that country, definitely India will have to face the brunt due to it. Next, out migration of educated and skilled Indians is not balanced by return flow of income, knowledge, investment, and talent. As we just discussed, that the number of students or education, the amount of education and skill that is outflowing from India, which is going out from India, is not really equated or balanced by the inflow back to India, and thus what we are facing more rampantly is just the outflow, and it will definitely empty our own selves. Next, what can be the solution? Definitely, this is a very important thing to be pondered upon, that what actually can be done and how can we deal with this situation. Firstly, systematic effort can be made to encourage the students to return home. First thing what should be done is that even before this step, what should be done is that we should provide such facilities and such level and quality of education to the students in India itself, that they are not at all incentivized to leave their own country and study into some foreign institutions in lieu of such heavy fees. And thus the institution or the education set up in our own country should be strong enough to hold them back. But even if in any scenario they choose to go out to some other country and study over there, the economic setup, for example, the ease of doing business, the opportunities, employment, the salaries, allowances given to them should be so engaging and so attractive that they feel compelled to come back to their own country and work over there itself, and thus they should not want to stay back in the very country they were studying in. Secondly, pay the brain drain tax as suggested by economist Jagdish Bhagwati in 1970s. Then the author says that all in all, if nothing of this works and the student or the person still chooses to be a part of the other country and stay back over there itself, then they should pay a tax which would be called as the brain drain tax. Please do remember that this is not yet any concrete to say solution, or not a concrete concept as yet. It has not been formulated till date. It's just a suggestion that such brain drain tax, that because they had consumed various resources of this country, and now when it was a time to return those resources, they chose some other country for that matter, and thus they should be liable to pay some particular tax from their earnings for this purpose. And it was suggested by the economist Jagdish Bhagwati in 1970s. Thus, all of these points should be kept in mind, and it should be considered that it is very important for India, if it wants to really become Atmanirbhar, as we are recently dealing with it every day in our news analysis, and if we want to develop the skill of the people within the country, it is important that we work on these aspects as well. And moving towards the last discussion for the day, which talks about the Assam flood. Here we know that due to the flood, 65 people in Assam have already died, and 35 lakh people in 25 districts have been affected. This is actually to say a disaster over a disaster, because recently the oil to say the oil well in Assam, near the Dibrugarh district, it had also experienced a leakage, and due to which it also caught a very huge fire, and due to that also a lot of people had to be displaced from their nearby or their local areas. And then obviously we know that COVID-19 is also hitting very hard in the state of Assam, and adding to this situation of disastrous flood wherein 65 people have died and 35 lakh people in 25 districts have been affected. So this definitely is adding more to their plight, and it should be really considered with a great attention. Also, as we also discussed in the News in Flash section yesterday, that 90% of the Kaziranga National Park has submerged. And thus, it is not only affecting the people, but also the environment and ecology. And we also learned yesterday that a lot of animals have been died due to this flood. Also, if you're interested, do write down the answer to that, which animal species is most famous and is found in the Kaziranga National Park. Next, what are the major problem areas? So what is the problem that why these floods are they recur so frequently in Assam, and what are to be the areas that are to be addressed? First, the embankments, or basically embankments mean the procedure for stopping the water. Now these could look like bunks or some tall walls for that matter. The embankments used to control floods, which were used in 1950s, are used till date, and definitely they are unable to contain the river water as the river course frequently changes. And thus embankments are no more an efficient method to stop the water from the river, and thus some better ideas should be used for that matter. Next, no reinforcement of embankment walls which are damaged by pressure of surging water. Many a times these embankment walls, which in worst case scenario were at least doing something, but many areas have been seen where these embankment walls have been broken and are leaking, and still no damage, this damage has not still been reconstructed or has not been paid attention to. Next, as per the Mission Flood Control Guwahati program, the unplanned expansion of the Guwahati city has led to severe encroachments in wetlands, low-lying areas, hills, and shrinkage of the forest cover. Thus, we know that wherever there is extensive, or to say more and more of human encroachment in such areas, then definitely natural calamities are normal, and they do occur very frequently. And thus, even in the case of Assam, Guwahati city, that is the capital of Assam, has seen severe encroachments in the wetlands, low-lying areas, hills, and shrinkage of the forest cover. On wetlands, one thing another should be remembered is that the Sukhna Lake recently, which is in Chandigarh, has also been declared as one of the wetlands, and this also can be a question from prelims exam. Next, the denuded hills and loss of wetlands leads to artificial floods, definitely, because the hills are eroding so fast because of the deforestation. More and more silt and soil or sedimentation is occurring in the floods, and thus it raises the height of the water, or it raises the pressure on the river, and thus such water flows very frequently out of these rivers. Thus, this was all for the day. Now let's deal with the News in Flash section. Firstly, decline in the maternal mortality rate, MMR. As per the Special Bulletin on Maternal Mortality in India, 2016-18, the MMR, which is the maternal mortality ratio in India, has declined to 114 in 2016-18 from 122 in 2015 to 17 and 130 in 2014 to 16. Basically, these very facts should they are not important to be kept in mind, but yes, a trend is to be understood. And for the most recent one, it should be noted that from 130 per year in 2014 to 16, it has declined to 114 in 2016 to 18. So this should be remembered. Next thing which we need to know is that maternal mortality ratio, what is it? It is the number of maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births. By maternal, we mean anytime in the process of delivering a baby, or even after some time when the abortion had had occurred, or the baby the woman had a miscarriage or something like that. So that would fall into the maternal deaths, and it is the number of maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births in a particular time. And in here we talk about per year. And one thing should be, another thing that can be noted here is that the situation of pregnant women in the time of COVID-19 has been really deteriorating, as we had already covered in the news analysis some days back, that we are focusing at times so much on the patients of COVID-19 that the other patients suffering from other ailments, and mostly the pregnant women, have been denied the medical facilities, which should not be the case. And here the target 3.1 of the Sustainable Development Goals set by UN. Target 3.1, so which is the first point of the third target of the Sustainable Development Goal, which is set by the United Nations, aims to reduce global maternal mortality ratio to less than 70, and thus India being a signatory to it itself should work more into this direction. Secondly, Kolkata port to Agartala via Chittagong port. So this is another advancement that has been made by India. So what basically it is, that India and Bangladesh have signed a memorandum of understanding. They had signed it in 2015, and then a standard operating system, which is the SOS, was finalized in 2019. Basically, this step will reduce the travel distance to half from the current 1200 kilometer. Basically, it will be possible now for India to travel to the northeastern states via the Bay of Bengal, and taking this Chittagong port, which is a port in Bangladesh, with the help of it. Basically, what can be done is that these states of Assam, Tripura and Meghalaya will be easily accessible, and the Siliguri corridor can be less burdened now. And further, this port, which is the Chittagong port, is also an important port in Bangladesh, and thus it is a great advancement on the part of the bilateral ties also between India and Bangladesh, and also gives us a higher or a better position in controlling or having access to the northeastern states. Third, Azad Patan hydropower project. Pakistan and China signed an agreement for the project on the Jhelum River. Now here we are sure that you must have got your answer for the MCQ, in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. But another thing that should be noted is that Pakistan occupied Kashmir is still a disputed territory between India and Pakistan. And when the CPEC, or the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, was built through the Gilgit-Baltistan area of the POK, it was very, very highly, to say, opposed by India, and definitely India is going to oppose to this the construction of this hydropower project as well. But it should be known that Azad Patan hydropower project is not the first one to be constructed in this area. It is the second one, and before that, Kohala project has already been started over there, and it is also situated on the Jhelum River. Thus, this should be known, and in any mains question also this can be quoted, wherein the question is about the CPEC or the China-Pakistan or the India-Pakistan border dispute, POK area, or anything like that. And for the last discussion, World Intellectual Property Report 2019 has recently been released. So this is a report which is released after every 2 years, and it is released by World Intellectual Property Organization, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations. According to this report, India is on the top 10th position amongst the nations for intellectual property filing, which definitely is a very positive step which can be seen, because more of the filing in the intellectual property means that more people are now engaging with works related to intellectual property, inventions, innovations, which definitely will lead to a better status of India at the global level and also at the domestic level. And secondly, when we talk about our schemes like Skill India or our to say aims of Skill India, Make in India, and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Even yesterday we talked about that we should focus and invest more and more in the intellectual property rights, and thus this is a very positive step, and we should endeavor to get into even higher ranks in this scenario. With this, we would end today's session. We hope that it was an informative one for you. For more such news analysis, stay tuned with LawSikho. Thank you so much.